Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Your Bread and Butter podcast. I'm Ryan Cummings.
And I'm Andrew Beaudry. Have a ho-ho-ho Christmas, not a no-no-no Christmas. Today, be it Hanukkah, Christmas, or New Year's, the holiday cheer often comes with a side of overspending temptation. So today, we want to look at some of the pathways to avoid the money minefields that come with family, personal, and business relationships.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Private Financial Design LLC are not affiliated.
Bread and butter.
Welcome back, everyone. Today's episode, have a ho-ho-ho, not a no-no-no Christmas. It's essentially a dynamic of spending in today's episode. How do you prepare for the holidays? Not spend too much, but have a reasonable budget to still have a happy and fun time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge. You know, you got Christmas, you got Hanukkah, you have your family, you've got traditions, you've got friends that you do things with, you get invited to 100 parties, can't go to the mall, then you got your employer, your people you work with, then you got vendors. There's a lot going on, and it's really easy to spend that money.
It is. And, you know, everything gets more expensive, gifts, clothes, even food. And speaking of food, do you know what a snowman eats for lunch?
Candy corn?
Ice burgers.
Ice burgers. Okay. I wonder if he's going to put mustard on it or not.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I'd want the yellow snow, though.
Well, I think, you know, one of the places to start is right now, because the stages of Christmas shopping often go like this. Number one, I got plenty of time. And then what happens?
It's the oh no stage two. You've run out of time and things won't ship in time, or stores are closed or out of supplies or whatever it is. You may have less time to get things done and have to settle for maybe a little bit of a lackluster Christmas gift. At that point.
My goodness. I go back to when my kids were younger, and Cabbage Patch dolls were this big rage. And there's always some kind of toy that's really hard to get around Christmas time because everybody wants it. And I can remember, you know, going and looking at all these places and trying to find the right Cabbage Patch doll. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This is just like insane stuff. But that's the way it used to be anyway. So
yeah.
Happy to have a better plan than just simply doing what Chevy Chase did by just falling off the roof.
It's definitely good to start now and get ahead of things, because I mean, I'll even have, you know, members of my family, some of them are guilty of waiting till the last second. I won't call anyone out, but you know, some people will do that. They'll wait till they're, you know, 2 days before and they're going to do their Christmas shopping. And hey, some people, I guess, work good under pressure, but I think for most of us, it's, you know, I like to have everything done by early mid-December and have everything ordered, shipped, or at least on its way, so you know if everything's going to be here in time.
I have friends that they have their Christmas shopping done by August. I mean, they get it done and early. By the way, do you know how you can get Santa Claus to come to your party?
I don't know. How?
You ask him for his presents.
There you go.
He'll be there. First of all, let's talk about, besides the bad dad joke, let's talk about your family personal traditions for the holiday season, including Christmas and Hanukkah. You know, what is your family traditions? What cost will there be for that family tradition? And are there ways to have some flexible arrangements around it? I do know some people that have some pretty extensive family traditions around the holidays.
Yes, and you know, that can be something that, I mean, that's definitely, like you said, something you want to try to bake into the situation, because for some families it's, you know, something, maybe there are a lot of costs with your family tradition, and others it's maybe much less so. So it's maybe trying to find that spot where, especially if money's tight for you, where can you contribute to your family's tradition that maybe fits your budget? You know, whether you have the money to spend or whether you don't, what's your family dynamics, you know, what's your family dynamic like? And, you know, can you just simply provide maybe, you know, the the decorating for the parties, or provide us your space as a place to and you host, and family will bring maybe some of the food or gifts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So find what works with your tradition and what fits within your budget.
Because it's not just always about, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but it's not always about so much the what you're getting as a gift as much as it is the actual time together as a family.
Definitely.
And sometimes people think by spending more money, somehow that's going to make up for not having good times together. And so as you sit down, you think about a budget for these things. You also want to think about it in terms of, well, what is my time commitment? How am I going to make this happen? So it's a time commitment, first of all, to set aside the time to do the right shopping, so you're not spending, $100 more on something that you could have bought $100 less by looking for it in another time of year, or even on your time frame thinking, well, how much time do I need to spend on doing this? But once you set the time budget, the financial budget, stick to it.
Yeah.
I think that's a really hard thing to do, though.
It is. And, I think, at least in our family, we do, with extended family, we do a lot of the Secret Santa dynamics. Everyone pulls a name out of a hat, you buy each other a gift, and try to guess who it was. And with those, I feel like with a lot of people, if you're familiar with the whole Secret Santa tradition, you usually set a dollar limit for how much each person is going to spend on one another. Well, you can do that for everyone within the family. It doesn't have to just be for the Secret Santa traditions. It can be for everyone you're buying gifts for. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a hard limit you stick to, but that's what we mean by building a budget, figuring out what's reasonable to spend for every area of whether it's gifts, I know we're focusing a lot on that, but even if it's, I was just talking with our producer here before you joined us, and even if it's decorations, she was saying they have to set a budget for decorations each year.
Yeah.
And so something like that too, set that budget, stick to it, and avoid the impulse buys.
Yeah.
You're in the store and you see the big light up, Santa Claus there sitting in the big warehouse, you want to buy that and have it in your yard. Like, try to avoid those impulse budgets. Buys, unless it's in your budget already.
Right. And we're talking a lot about family right now, because we'll get to all those other kind of professional relationships, neighbors, friends, that kind of stuff. But I think avoiding the impulse buys is really the biggest deal, because the ads are already out, well before Halloween comes calling, the ads are already out, that even over this past weekend, I saw, the Lexus ad starting with the big ribbon over the car, kind of stuff. Have you ever tried to do that? Take a big ribbon and put it around a car? Yeah. So I tried to do that when my kids were in high school and they were going to split a car, and I was looking for this big bow, and I'm like, these things are just way too expensive. Why would I spend like $140 on a bow that's going to sit there for 30 seconds while they tear off the car, So it's not worth doing some of these things, but you do have to make some tough decisions sometimes on focusing what you're trying to do. So shop early, shop around, and be careful too, because sometimes these Black Friday deals that happen after Thanksgiving, if you've watched any of the pieces out there on Instagram and a few other places, you realize that they start slowly raising the price up here in October.
Leading up to it.
Right. So then when you get that 50 or 60% off, it's actually really only about 10 if you go back and you look at the price back in October.
Right.
So they raise the prices up slowly but surely, and then they look like you're getting this deal and you're not really getting it. But I can remember, seeing these advertisements. I'll never forget. Radio Shack was showing these really great speakers. They were really nice speakers, and I was looking at them in the summer, and they were like, I don't know, it was like $110 for the pair, and they really looked good. And then all of a sudden, comes Black Friday, and I go out and I'm see the advertisement, half off. And I'm looking at the sticker price. So the sticker price was $110, $120. It was $180, and now you're going to get it for $90. Now that is still cheaper than the $110, but it was only like 20% off.
Right.
It wasn't the full 50. So, that's that's from like 20 years ago, because Radio Shack doesn't even exist anymore. Anyway, shop early and shop around.
Yeah, and even opting for experiences or homemade or handmade gifts, that can go a long way, and can oftentimes to a lot of people, mean more. I mean, even an example, last year, my son was born last year. Last year was his first Christmas. And to a lot of the of our, my parents, my wife's parents, all the grandparents and everyone, we took little canvases, dipped his feet in green paint, printed them on the canvas there, put some like leaves and little fluff balls and whatnot on and glued it on there, and we made mistletoes with his footprint. And so
That's great.
It was it was a nice little gift. Everyone loved it, and it's like perfect theme for the holiday, and cost us next to nothing. For all we had to do was buy the paint and the canvases, so it was like $15, and we had presents for 5 different people.
Probably one of my most favorite gifts ever as a child was this NFL football game that was one of those electric boards that you put the little guys on, you turn it on, and the players would kind of jiggle and all this stuff. And it was kind of cool. You'd see it on the TV. It didn't work quite as well as what they said it would. But the reason why it was special wasn't the game itself. It was on Christmas Eve. It was snowing, and it was like a 18-inch snowstorm, 20-inch snowstorm. And my dad left the house early in the evening. It was like 4 o'clock or so on Christmas Eve, and he's driving out in this crazy snowstorm, and then he came back. And I found out later on, as I got a little older, that he went out that night in the snowstorm because the football game had come in at Sears because it had to be ordered, and he went drive out there in the snowstorm. So that actually became a really special gift, not because of, I don't even know where that thing is now. It's probably in the trash somewhere. But anyway, point being is that what made it special was the fact that he went out and he did this in the snowstorm, and that was kind of cool. So remember, the gift of experience is a really big part, and spending time with the loved ones. It's really not the presents that they receive, though. I will tell you that when you are wrapping your presents and your gifts, there is a lot of love that goes into it. The problem is, what does your neighbor do? There's this whole thing about my family, we celebrate Christmas a whole lot more than your family does. Nobody says that, but you can look at somebody's yard and go, okay, they're pretty serious about Christmas. Yeah. So be careful about what you're doing in Christmas, not trying to compete with other people.
Yeah, instead of the keeping up with the Joneses, you gotta keep up with with your neighbors with the Christmas decorations. But
let's talk a little bit about friends and what we do with friends, though, because that's a big part of Christmas.
Yeah, when you get outside of maybe the immediate family dynamic, a lot of people, some do, some don't, but you can have special traditions with friends, whether it's, get-togethers or dinners. I know with some of my close friends, we always do a kind of close to Christmas dinner where we all get together, maybe get each other a gift or two, but really just, all congregate at someone's house, make hot cocoa, like get together, spend some time together, and just have a fun time. And that's just something we try to do as we get close to Christmas and spend that time with each other, because we're all so busy during the holidays. We often, have a good chunk there at the end of the year where we don't really get to see many of our friends because it is so much family time. So that's a nice tradition to try to add in there.
And you want to make it fun. Yes. Now at Christmas time too, we also have Hanukkah, a big Jewish holiday. And really Hanukkah is 8 very small gifts. There's no rules about gift giving. There's no mention of it basically in the Torah, but it's based on Esther chapter 9 in the Old Testament, verse 22, where the Hebrews celebrated surviving the genocidal plot of the ruler, and they gave gifts to each other, and it morphed into celebrating the miracle of the oil not running out during a national crisis. Some traditional ideas for those of you out there wondering about your Jewish friends. You could give a dreidel. You could give a menorah, which is also known as a Hanukkah, a menorah with 9 candle spots. Jewelry with Jewish symbols like a magen, Star or Shield of David, which is. Often there's also a stylized hand, which is called a hamsa, with an eye in the center of the palm, which is thought to ward off the evil eye. And it brings good fortune, health, and protection. And then there's challah boards that serve, which is like for a surface for serving and cutting challah bread. These boards often have both practical and symbolic significance. And Shabbat candlesticks are essentially a Jewish item that is in households and it's used for lighting. And Shabbat candles, it's a ritual marking the beginning of the Sabbath or the Shabbat on a Friday evening. And lighting these candles symbolizes the transition from the weekday to the holy day. and it brings peace and sanctity in the home. So this is something that just some terms that you can look up and celebrate with your Jewish friends. Most of my Jewish friends celebrate Christmas too, but one year I helped celebrate Hanukkah with a couple of my Jewish friends, and they were a little bit shocked that I did these things for them, and it does make a special.
And I think that's important. You know, if you have friends that, because I feel like a lot of time within the same family, you might all have similar traditions, but when you get outside of your immediate family into your friend group, I think it's key to maybe recognize some of their traditions and things that they might do that maybe you're not used to, or it's different, whether it is a completely different type of celebration, like the Jewish holiday tradition, or whether it's something similar to you, but maybe just in a different structure. I know different families have different dishes they prepare, or different traditions they do, whether it's things like, caroling or charitable, endeavors around the holidays, you name it. There can be all sorts of different things.
I found out from one of my Jewish friends what music elves listen to when they're working on their presents.
Elves? Okay.
They listen to rap music.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Anyway, so Santa only works one day a year, and then he spends the rest of the year judging you as to whether you're good or bad. So that's why we're going to talk a little bit about expectations for your career, your business. This is a different kind of gifting, different level.
It is. When you get into the holidays and in the business environment, it's a much different dynamic. You have to be much more cognizant of the difference and the diversity of people's, religions and celebrations around the holiday time. And I think being able to celebrate a holiday in a holiday manner rather than a Christmas manner or a Hanukkah manner or anything like that is key. And being able to include maybe clients. We like to send out a Christmas card. Every this time of the year, and even though our clients, some of them may not celebrate Christmas, it is a card that just simply is a reminder of us, and that we're thinking of them in this time of year.
We've had so many of our clients after they have passed away, where the children who come in and we're working with them as beneficiaries. We just recently had this happen where the children, one of the children or some of the children will say, we found all of your Christmas cards over the last 20 something years all around the house in different places. So we do it because it's special. It communicates. So you have to find a level of gifting for your people, that your patients, your clients, or whatever that you're working with, and also people that are centers of influence. Maybe they're not your client, but they're people that you work with. They could be, in our business, it could be accountants and some lawyers. And you're not talking about magnanimous gifts, but you're also talking really about something that's sensitive, that shows them that you love working with them, the professional relationship is solid, something that, considers them. So again, it could be as small as just a bottle of wine, or taking them out to lunch, just saying thank you, that kind of thing. Those are very important. But let's talk about office coworkers. And how do you do that? Even
inside the office environment, I think it's trying to do a couple things around the holidays. I mean, one, I think it's trying to make sure that everyone in the office has their time to enjoy with their family. I think that's a big piece of it. I think some businesses, it's you have to. There's so much demand from the business that people feel obligated to continue working, and I think it's helping everyone know and feel comfortable that hey, there's that time to be able to spend away and disconnect with your family. But even before that, I think it's connecting with your coworkers. And you don't have to necessarily be a family per se, but connecting with them in a level that, hey, this is a kind of a special time of year, and we're all kind of working together and wrapping up the year, and basically letting people know, I think, you appreciate the job that they do, that they've done all year. Is key. And that could be, that could be in the form of, whether it is little gifts, it could be the form of a dinner at the, towards year end, or a little holiday party of some kind, or many different things.
I think things get really tougher on the holidays with all the parties people get invited to, and just the events, all of that. And I know in our office, we try not to hold an event right at the Christmas time, mainly because it's end of the year for us.
Sure.
And so we tend to be quite busy. And so if anything, we try to use that to get more time for all of us to be able to spend more time with our families. So time is the gift we try to give there. But after the holidays is normally when we try to celebrate. And then again, your company that you work with or you work for, you have to find out what their policies are and understand.
Yeah.
You don't want to cross those boundaries. There are companies out there that they don't have Christmas parties for the very reason that they're too large or they're too political, they're too complex. So however it fits with your environment, you got to find a way to make it work.
They can sometimes be an HR nightmare. You hear stories of the the large companies that have Christmas parties, and maybe there's that executive that had one too many and said something that
all of a sudden there's a moon on the copying machine that shouldn't be there. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, we get that. But truthfully, it's a great time to actually, given the opportunity to celebrate, enjoy life, try to find some things that your coworkers know that you value them as a partner in your work. Those are things that are important, and finding out what people are like. Now, there's going to be those people that are forced to have to do something. There are companies out there that still do these parties.
Yeah. So
how do you handle when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, we're going to have our Secret Santa this year, and you got to spend $20, and this is what you got to do." So how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think it's just trying to find some balance, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what is the dynamic of whether you do participate in that or you don't, or if that's something that outside of your budget, maybe you don't spend the $20 and, you find another way to get another gift for that Secret Santa that still is meaningful and maybe on the level of that. That goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Of maybe you go the homemade route or the handmade route. But, I think it's being able to find that balance of, well, what do you want to participate in, and what are the the benefits of doing it, the benefits of not, and how does it fit into your overall kind of career growth at that company that you're with.
And by the way, you're not going to impress anybody by getting this big extravagant gift and hoping that they're going to pay attention to that. I will say this, gift cards get a really bad reputation among people, but in actuality, if you can't really think of what you could get for a Secret Santa, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a gift card.
Yeah,
some of the some of the fun memories I have is has been getting a gift card from somebody and going out, and whether it's a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts card or something like that, and when I'm spending that, I do go back to the person and say, "Hey, I just want you to know I spent that gift today, and this is what I got."
Yeah.
Just to let them know that, I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
But gift cards actually are a way to make a connection with people, both as the recipient of it, as well as the giver. So I think this is an important part that people forget, that you don't have to get fancy, and you also don't have to dump down. And if you can't afford to do it, you do what you can that's best.
Right.
I mean, I've known people that have said, I'm really short on money this year, but, I would love to, go for a hike or go for a walk or, something that just communicates that, I don't have anything to give except for myself.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that exception. No. That's a good thing. So
not at all. And if there's someone who has exception with that, then maybe it's maybe it's not someone you want in your immediate circle. So, but I think one of the big takeaways of the today's discussion is try to find the things that fit your situation and be key in on those little details that come with different people and different traditions, and be careful of liabilities. I mean, that's back to the budgeting piece of it we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
You can use a credit card, but not if you're the person who can't use a credit card prudently. I think some people that have to stay away from those things entirely, or because they can't manage them properly, and you have others that they use credit cards for everything and they just pay it off every single month.
And as much as a family is a temptation, coworkers can be the same thing. It can be the exact same thing. You're trying to impress somebody, and it doesn't really work. And if you have to impress them that way, then they probably not a really good friend anyway.
Right.
I think the next group here, which is a little bit different, we think of the mailman who comes to the door every day. We think of people like that. I think vendors or other service people that you use, it's important for them to know that you appreciate it. We've had the same UPS and FedEx people come here for a number of years. One of them eventually became a client, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But our staff, really, Shannon thought of this idea. She said, you know what, let's put out water, let's put out cookies, let's put out some stuff that people can take that come up and deliver packages. They can grab a water, they can grab a snack. And I thought that was just a brilliant idea. And we've done that for several years now. And that really, it tells those people that are serving our office. Unfortunately, with Amazon, it's a whole bunch of different people all the time, but they can take it too. So it's not Jeff Bezos coming to the door, so we're not worried about that. But it's important to know how to best customize. If you have a specific vendor that you know what's important to them, then take care of them.
Yeah.
But you also want to be careful of a different kind of liability here.
What's
right?
that?
Well, no, you thought I was going to say a dad joke,
No,
right? No, it's a liability that you may not want to put out peanuts.
True.
You know?
Yeah. You definitely don't want to do that. No.
Unless it's Snoopy and Charlie Brown or something. But check with other people. And
Still
this
snuck one in there.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, I have to really be blunt about this. So check with your spouse, your partner, when you start making these plans. I find that that's a really good idea to run it by somebody who knows you well and maybe knows the other person.
Definitely.
Because you may think one thing and then you say that out loud to somebody and they go, "You're going to do what?"
Yes, it's good to have those checks and balances. Someone second set of eyes looking at things. But I think you make a good point. I mean, with anyone in that service industry, I think if you have the means to do it, it's a good time to, I think, a time of year to pass on just a little something extra. And I think just the feeling from, seeing even the look on their face of having, whether it is just even something as a little bit of a snack or drinks or food out on a cold day when they're delivering packages, or even if it's other service workers that you see regularly, and it's just kind of letting them, giving them, again, if you have the means, giving them a little something extra around this time of year. I mean, for example, I always, around the holidays, if I go get my haircut at the barber, I try to leave maybe a slightly larger tip than I would otherwise. Yeah. Or, we go, they have a full service gas station up in my town and leave a slightly larger little tip after they pump your gas. And, just little things like that to kind of, is the, the old adage of spreading holiday cheer.
Yeah.
Just the nice feeling you get when they have that smile on their face when you hand them the few extra dollars. So
yeah, so like even if you're visiting with your dentist at the end of the year and you just want to give them some good encouraging advice, you can thank them for all the teeth cleaning that they've done and just encourage them to not get down in the mouth. Just really make sure that they're
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Got to fill that cavity somewhere.
Yeah.
But let's do a little summary here. I think let's start, first of all, we've already talked about vendors, so we're pretty clear on that one. I do think when you have a coworker and you get a Secret Santa and you get this person's name, you don't know anything about them, make sure you get advice. But, work with your vendors. And let's work our way back to, the idea of friends, some of the important aspects of considering friends.
Yeah, making sure they're included, making sure you're catering to at least some of their traditions, their needs, their wants, so they feel welcome and they're not just, maybe in proximity to you in your holiday traditions, but they're part of it, or you're part of theirs.
Yeah, exactly.
And then even in the family side of things, I mean, being sure that, you're setting those budgets, you're being reasonable with gifts, you're going the handmade or homemade route when necessary, and you're leveraging all these different tools to not just focus on, I feel like what a lot of us can get caught up in around the holidays times is spending a little too much, because that's the core of our discussion today, is trying to keep all those things in check. And when you follow some of these other steps and you make sure that you are really catering more to the experience and how things make people feel, well, you're naturally maybe going to spend a little less, when you go about that line of thought.
Right. If you're running to CVS to, go get a last minute gift, you're already in trouble.
Right.
It's better to make a plan. So list out in your family, start with your family first, start with the priorities, list out their names, what's important. For children, you talk with your spouse. your partner, you find out, well, what is best for our child? What can we do there for them? And then after you get done with your children, then you can go to your parents and siblings. And then, of course, you want to talk, know what to do for each other. But I think having a plan, not just in your head, but written down. And then you can assign each other, hey, this kind of toy, this is what we're looking for. And then both of you can, play a role in that. I think when this kind of thing happens, when people have a plan, they feel much better about it. I mean, there's been times in the past where I would buy things during the course of a year and forget that I bought them for the person and couldn't find them. I literally have had that happen. So part of what I do now is I put in where I put them.
Okay.
Because when you find them a year later, it's not a good thing. Like, where was that? Where did I put that? So have a full Rome plan.
Yes.
Well, thank you for listening today. And just remember, live today for the tomorrow that's in your heart.
Because you'll never have more time to plan for tomorrow than you do today.
Thank you for watching.